Our next speaker is from Dalhousie University, Geoff Brown. He's the Scholarly Communications Librarian, and we're just going to queue up his slides here. I don't need this anymore because we're not sharing video. Just 1 second. Okay, close that. Okay, so let me go on. You don't have to put it anywhere, but that's forward and that's backward. Let me, yeah, I just have to load the, and it was a PowerPoint or was it a PDF? Okay. So we're just loading and you should be seeing it any moment. And our mic is there, so if you want to stay around this general area, that'll make things easier. You can move the podium if you don't want it. So we're just loading the presentation. It should be up here in a second, hopefully. And are folks still hearing everything okay in the room? Excuse me, online, hearing what's being said in the room? I just want to do a quick tech check because I'm not hearing a lot back. So, okay, thank you. Thank you. It's getting there. It must be a fairly large.
Not that big, actually. It's like 9 slides, maybe.
There you go.
Let's see if the thing works.
Just 1 sec. It's still sort of loading.
Still doing its thing.
Should be okay to try it now. So it's down one. That's okay. Well, worst comes to worst, I can move them along. Is that what?
Oh,
yeah. Okay, so I'll move it along. Just say next slide.
Okay.
Yeah, that might start to kick in at some point, but
maybe it'll start
hasn't
to
yet.
click in because I'll move through them quickly once I get to a certain point.
Okay, and yes, Anne, I'll repeat the questions when they're said in the room because sometimes in some of the far reaches they can't be heard. Okay.
Okay.
Take it away, Geoff.
Hi guys. So I'm gonna get down in the weeds a little bit and describe our little project we did at Dal. So we created an open textbook. So again, I'm not speaking strategically here. Basically, an opportunity arose and we seized the moment by creating this book. So this book came together over the course of last summer, completed it just before Christmas. And so it came together in a slightly unusual way. You can see on the cover there, it's in its 6th edition now. It had been through 5 print editions, all of which we had in print at the Dal libraries. The author had actually completed the 6th edition when he passed away. So it was a really weird set of circumstances. So he passed away. It was scheduled to be published by Oxford University Press, actually, was slated to publish this. But when the author passed away, they declined to publish. And so his widow, who is the estate trustee, she was, upset about this, obviously, because he had done all of this work. There were 5 previous editions. And so she was really afraid that this book would just sort of be shelved permanently, and it would have been. So she approached Oxford University Press and said, if you guys aren't going to do anything with this, can you give me the rights to it? She didn't know what she wanted to do at that point, but her instincts were pretty good. So essentially she got the copyright to the book, and then she had planned to donate her husband's papers to the university archives. And one of the sort of standard things that our archives does when we acquire materials is we get the copyright to them. So when all of this author's papers, like for his whole career, his physical papers and his hard drives and all of his digital files came into the university archives, the files for this book were part of that archival acquisition. And so it was shortly after the university archives acquired the papers that they approached me and said, you've done some digital publishing. Can you do anything with this? And so the timing was actually perfect because we really wanted to move on an open textbook. So that was the sort of that was essentially how it came together. And then, of course, we had a conversation with the donor just to let her know that, we would like to do this as an open textbook. And she didn't really know, like most people, they don't really know what an open textbook is. They don't know what the implications of that are. But she was very much on board. So she was completely, her wishes were completely in line with what we wanted to do. So it really worked out well. So that was the starting point. Next slide. This is what I ended up with. Not unlike a lot of open textbook projects. A bunch of Microsoft Word files, 28 of them with figures, photographs, everything. It was nicely formatted. It was pretty good, but it all had to come apart, right? So early on, I decided we needed to migrate this into a platform where we could really manage this as an open textbook, and this wasn't going to be it, right? Next slide. Happily, and Roger, I would have acknowledged you even if you weren't in the room, but Roger Gillis, our digital humanities librarian, he had installed a copy of Pressbooks on our library server. And so this is just a great opportunity to try out Pressbooks. And did we have anything on our Pressbooks before this one, Roger?
No, but we were dying to get away from Gitbook.
Yeah, that's right. So we had a project in Gitbook that we had kind of worked on and didn't really go very well. So anyway, I took those Word files, and the really good thing about it, and I said that I'm going to be in the weeds a little bit because this is just kind of how we did it kind of story. Pressbooks works really well with Microsoft Word files, oddly enough. So we imported those files into those Word files into Pressbooks. It did take a lot of work to get it to where we got it, which I'll show you in a bit, just some screen grabs. But Pressbooks really is a critical infrastructure piece. It was for us just in making this happen. And beyond anything else, and I told you how the project sort of came about. It's unlikely that anyone else is going to have that scenario, but I think that the basics here are probably becoming evident. If you have a Pressbooks site and the opportunity arises, this was just sort of what led us through this project. So we imported the Word files into Pressbooks. You can probably see we put an open license. That's another equally critical part of any open textbook project. There's really no point in doing it if you're not going to make it open, right? And we'd been down some dead-end roads with some faculty on some other projects where we discovered that we weren't understanding each other. They thought, this was all about making a free textbook for their particular class, and they didn't get the open part of it. So we put a Creative Commons license on this. There's no confusion around what people can do with this. So that was equally important. Next slide. You got it. Okay, so this is just a screen grab of what the book looks like in our Pressbooks site. It's not particularly important, but it navigates well. The Word files came in fairly easily. So that's how it appears online. Next slide. But the other really neat thing about Pressbooks, of course, is it makes it really easy to produce exportable and downloadable formats as well, which is really a requirement if you're going to participate in any larger open textbook initiatives, right? So for us, we exported an EPUB, a digital PDF, a print-optimized PDF, a MOBI, and a Pressbooks XML. And I'll just kind of show you what some of those ended up looking like. Next slide. So that's what the EPUB looks like on a tablet, right? So that's on my iPad. So again, flexibility in formats is really important for open textbooks. You don't know what the people are going to be using. You don't know what device they're going to have, so you just have to hit them with everything. Next slide. That's what the PDF looks like on a laptop. Next slide. I told you they'd be quick. That's what the XML looks like. So it's actually an important file, believe it or not. Go back. So that XML file, I exported that, and I was like, who's going to use that? But BC Campus wanted it, and I'll show you a slide in a second with BC Campus. But they wanted us to have our Pressbooks XML, so because that's an important part of it being adaptable, right? So people can take our Pressbooks XML now and import that into their own Pressbooks site, so they can adapt the thing. It's got an open license, so they can work on it. The book can live on because these aren't static projects, right? So that's the Pressbook XML, flexibility and formats. Next slide. So next we wanted to make the book discoverable. And so this is just DalSpace. This is our institutional repository. We put it in there for a couple of reasons. A, that's our preservation strategy, but B, it just gets way better indexing by Google. Google hasn't gotten around to indexing our Pressbook site so well yet, so Google can find our content in DalSpace. So that's just was a part of our initial discovery plan. Next slide. This was a library project, so we put the book in the library catalog. So there it is in the Novanet record. It sits amongst the print editions, the previous year's print editions, so people can find it in the catalog. Next slide. We made sure it showed up in WorldCat, global catalog of library catalogs. Again, I'm geeking out on library stuff, but it's important, to give this, to make it discoverable in as many places as possible. So we have it in WorldCat, and then, of course, we have it listed on our LibGuide, where we talk all about how we support open textbooks and open educational initiatives at Dalhousie. I don't even have that slide in my notes. So anyway, it's in our LibGuide. Next slide, please. And of course, we had it included in the BC Campus Open Textbook Initiative. And that's another thing that I hadn't actually thought about it when I was originally sort of in building the thing. I was like, of course, there's one thing for us to talk about regional platforms and getting it out in the region, but there's all kinds of other great initiatives that already exist out there. So just getting it listed in BC Campus, I have to talk to the people at eCampus Ontario as well, where I want to get it listed. So we want to get it listed in as many other people's open textbook platforms as well. So next slide. Hopefully, so we made it free, we made it open, we've made it flexible, in that we've got all those formats. We've got online, we've got downloadables, we don't have any digital locks on it, and it's widely available. So really, that was our quick romp through an open textbook project. Now obviously we didn't have many of the obstacles that you guys have talked about on a strategic level today, talking about funding and how we're going to organize ourselves regionally, but I think just having a working example for us is kind of nice, because it's something now that we can kind of point to when we get to those strategic discussions. And we say, hey, you know what, we did this. We know how the mechanics of it work. Now let's figure out the difficult stuff, like getting people to agree to things and fund them and things like that. So anyway, that was our project. It was actually kind of fun to work on. It was a good little project. So yeah.
And So are there any questions, either from in the room or online? Somebody is typing a message. Yay, Geoff.
Thanks, Anne.
Okay, so are the use stats captured on this title?
The use stats. We don't have, no, I've been talking with our library IT about, so Google Analytics was my idea for how we would capture usage on this. And I have, we just released this before Christmas, so we haven't hammered that out, how we're going to do that. But that was the idea, and IT pushed back and said, no, we can't do Google Analytics with this. I don't know where the conversation goes from there, but it has to go somewhere because we have to get usage data. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I was going to ask a similar question, just if you happen to know kind of what, like you released a bunch of different ways to access this, but do you know kind of which one is the most accessed?
At the moment now,
okay,
yeah. And we don't know who uses this textbook at this point in their current curriculum. Like all of those questions we need now to sort of set about finding the answers to. Yeah.
No.
Peter.
Any notions of the amount of time that your crew put into making this happen?
Yeah, I mean,
once you got the text.
Once we got the text, and there wasn't a lot of there was, Roger did a bunch of work on getting our press books, which was a bit of work, and our IT department now has to sort of, on an ongoing basis, sort of manage our press books as one of our core delivery platforms. And then, for myself over the summer, it was probably on the order of, a couple of solid weeks, I would say, just sort of cramming the text through. And then this one had a little extra because there was a lot of chemistry in it that didn't necessarily come through from Word. It didn't migrate easily, so there were some extra wrinkles that way. But yeah.
You looked at the update, the edition schedule, just to get a sense of what a project like this. How often did he do his previous editions?
They seem to be spaced out by, I'm going to say, over 10 years he probably had 5 editions. So yeah, probably once every couple of years. Yeah. And I've been speaking with someone in the biology department who worked with him on this about how we move this now on, over to someone who can update this as well, right? Because it's not a static project. We really do want someone to get in there, and that's the next steps for us, right? Is figuring out how do we get people working in our press books. What kind of training materials do we develop? Those are all things that have to be sort of addressed.
Have you thought about the whole forking process yet? Because the whole idea here is
Yep.
you've got your edition.
Yeah, exactly.
But somebody in BC may have their edition.
Yeah.
There may be 20 editions.
Correct.
So how do you keep all that? Is there a standard approach?
Not that I know of.
To keeping that stuff straight?
That's something I don't know.
Yeah.
So that all had to be. I'm really curious. It's been really good communicating with the people at BC campus because I'm guessing they're going to come up against this stuff really soon.
Certainly, I'm sure there are places in the States where there are
They're already
of editions. So that's all.
Exactly. But that's the point, and then the license carries through, and the attribution has to carry through, and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Do they not have ISBNs?
We didn't assign an ISBN to this. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so is that?
I think it varies.
Okay.
I think
that would be a way
yep.
to sort of keep track.
That could be
right?
absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
I was just gonna say, as far as I know, I think UPEI has ISBN for there.
Yeah.
I may be guessing, but that sounds familiar.
It could be we go the DOI route with it as well, with it being a digital resource.
DOI or an
Yeah.
ISBN,
Yeah.
Does Pressbooks assign a DOI?
No. We can. There is in the metadata you can put a DOI in there, but it doesn't mint them like a. What's that?
Dalhousie assigns a DOI.
We do that manually, so we do that with Crossref, and we would do it the same way with this. We would work. Pressbooks wouldn't assign a DOI, but we could mint one and then put it on it in Pressbooks, and it would function the same way. Yeah.
Did you run any kind of a campaign?
We did a whole over at Dalhousie, so that was our main sort of initial effort at doing some raising some awareness around it. So, and that was quite well attended. It was, yeah.
And this is Pressbooks based design where you can assemble together and the platform, or is it just?
It's a place where you can assemble a book to say, and you do design in there to a certain extent. It works like from a design perspective. It works off of style sheets, so you would do your styling elements in a style sheet in there. But yes, that's all happens in Pressbooks. So you arrange things in there. You can do a certain amount of styling in there. But it's not like a full-blown standalone design tool, like InDesign, for example. It operates obviously different from that, and that's not the focus of it, right? Like I think as in libraries, when we want to deliver content using a platform like this, I think we want to maybe focus on getting everyone to use like a set of templates rather than treating everything as a design exercise. I think we would get bogged down in needlessly, I would say. And I mean, obviously there are teaching pedagogical sort of things that you want to be aware of, but I don't think you would want to get weighted down in design, that's for sure.
Being able to document this project, have you got any information on how many classes were using the textbook over its previous?
No, we don't. That's the thing. We don't really have that environmental sort of and that's something that we're lacking for. I mean, that was raised earlier too. Like, who knows who's using what right now? Let alone like not just open resources, but who uses what textbooks in general. I don't think we have a full-on. I don't have that information available to me easily, for example.
approached your academic?
I haven't, no.
I mean, have you
But-
been refused? Because we have.
No, I haven't been refused. That's interesting. Okay, yeah. Huh. Which is a problem.
Yeah.
As we try to navigate these murky waters. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say, Geoff, it popped into my head, one of the ways to maybe promote this kind to other environmental science professors in the region is through something like Science Atlantic.
Right.
It promotes the undergraduate science.
Yep.
Maybe they'd be willing to listen. Students there as well. You get that bubbling out.
Yeah.
Environmental conference is in 2 weeks. That's in Vex.
Yeah. There's so many layers to this though, right? Like here I get up and try to explain our simple little project, but there's like, yeah, exactly. Like a lot of things you can do. You need a lot of people.
Well, thank you very
All
much,
right.
Geoff. This has been fantastic.
Yeah.
It's always nice to see a practical application of it. You learn so much.
Thanks, you guys.